When I was growing up during, the glory days of Miami Hurricanes football, the Canes used to have the type of defensive line that would just bully the opposition and steal their lunch money every single game. Can we get back to that?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, including pregame and postgame for Miami Hurricanes football. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen every day. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts, and we are also available free on YouTube. So by popular demand, we allowed our listeners to choose our adventure for today's episode, breaking down another position group. They want to hear about the defensive linemen, tackles, edge rushers, transfers, recruiting. It just makes my head spin. And honestly, guys, this is one of those exercises where when I start to really do the deep dive on the research, you feel better than I even expected going into the research as to just how deep this group feels. Now, especially at defensive tackle, I think there's a lot to prove. Defensive end got a huge injection of transfers. Who better to help us break down all of this with good friend of the show? And this is somebody, if you're a Canes fan, you need to be following Gaby Urrutia, who does an awesome job covering the current players, covering recruiting for Inside the U at 24/7 Sports. Gaby, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Donno. Appreciate you having me on again. I definitely enjoy being on with you.
Of course, man. And so, all right, let me throw out some of the names out there, a lot of the names, tackle and edge rusher, and then we'll start to dive in on a few of these players, specifically defense. Leonard Taylor, Jared Harrison-Hunte, Jordan Miller, Daryl Jackson, who just transferred in from Maryland, Akheem Mesidor, who just transferred in from West Virginia, Mitchell Agude transfers from UCLA, more familiar faces, Jahfari, Harvey, Elijah Roberts, Chance Williams, more transfers, Antonio Moultrie from UAB, Jake Lichtenstein, who I thought had a good spring game out of USC. You got Cyrus Moss and Nigely Kelly in the recruiting class this year, the class of 2022. But I want to start, Gaby, in the interior, right? Because I'm hoping Miami can finally find and develop another Vince Wilfork type. And if you go by the pedigree, Leonard Taylor, who's a former top 10 recruit in the country, heading into his sophomore season out of Miami Palmetto, he's got that type of pedigree, Gaby. And we saw him late in the season on the back nine, really starting to flash. He played in 9 games last year, 21 tackles, 8.5 TFL, a couple of sacks. Talk to me about Leonard Taylor and your expectation for this coming season.
Yeah, just kind of even dating back to high school. I believe we had Leonard Taylor ranked as the number 3 overall player. These are the types of guys that you bring into the program and that you expect really, really, big things from down the line. And, he led the team in tackles for loss as a true freshman, despite a pretty limited snap count. You did say that, later in the year, he got more of a shot, but still to lead the team in, tackles behind the line of scrimmage as a true freshman coming off that, really high star ranking. I think it's definitely a glimpse, into his future and what is sort of to come for him. I think he's someone that's still developing, still someone that's generating, just building his body up. And, really he's still kind of a puppy, really just a true sophomore. But, I do think that there's going to be some high expectations for him. And, what he can do in this system, especially with a few other guys that you mentioned. With the Akheem Mesidors, the Mitchell Agudes, where he can't be really the focal point of what you're doing on offense in terms of protecting, we got to stop Leonard Taylor. You can't do that because you got a couple other guys around him. I think that could potentially open things up for him too. I'm expecting pretty big things from him here, man. Again, he's one of these recruits that, kind of felt like one of those can't miss prospects. He definitely proved it on Friday nights at Miami Palmetto, and definitely excited to see a developed Leonard Taylor here in Kevin Steele's defense.
And, he's basically a lock, of course, to be a starting defensive tackle. Do you agree that the other starting defensive tackle, his wingman, is likely to be Jared Harrison-Hunte, fourth-year redshirt sophomore out of New York State, former 3-star recruit, 17 tackles, 2 sacks last year? What's your projection for Mr. Harrison-Hunte?
I mean, I think Jared Harrison-Hunte, I mean, he's one of those guys that, again, just kind of looking, I kind of always view things just in the recruiting point because that's just how I'm sort of wired. But I mean, as a guy coming out, I mean, Alabama came in late. A lot of big time schools came in late trying to, get him. I mean, he has a crazy athletic profile. He was doing like windmill dunks in like, in outdoor basketball leagues at Christ the King, I believe the school is the school that he was at
Yeah.
up in New York. And, he's someone that I think has a really, really promising athletic profile. I think he has a great athletic background. I think he's someone that with this strength program, I think he's someone that could really just continue to elevate. I'm not sure if I see him as like the guy next to Leonard Taylor, just considering who they brought in. I think Akheem Mesidor could potentially be someone that lines up next to him. And I think he's a versatile chess piece that you could potentially line up on the strong side. But then you got Jahfari, Harvey, and Mitchell Agude, who I'm actually really, really high on. So, I think Akheem Mesidor is definitely going to be one of those guys that probably features on the defensive line. But I mean, I think Jared Harrison-Hunte, and I mean, you're mentioning how deep it was. I mean, you got Jared Harrison-Hunte, you got Jake Lichtenstein, you got a bunch of guys out there that you can mix into the rotation. I think that was the point of all this with Mario
Yeah.
Cristobal and how he attacked the trenches.
Well, okay, and let's pick up on Mesidor, because this to me, and we did a show, Gabby, a few weeks ago on this network about the transfer portal players, and I predicted Mesidor would have the biggest impact of
Yeah.
any of the transfer players. And there's a lot of good ones that Miami brought in. Now, in his 2 years at West Virginia, played mostly on the edge. His first year played in the interior. The second year, from what I understand, he prefers playing on the edge, but he's obviously capable of playing both at a very high level. So where do you think we'll see more of Mesidor? Is he going to be like a Swiss Army knife that they can line up a lot of different spots on the D line, or is he going to focus on the exterior or interior?
And just like maybe the more traditional like 4-man set, like that 4-3 look Miami gives, I think he'll probably be more of an inside guy. But look, I'm kind of expecting Kevin Steele to show some 3-4 looks. I mean, even just talking to recruits, some of the formations some of the roles they sort of tell some of these recruits, they sort of envision them for our 3-4 looks. I mean, I definitely anticipate to get for Kevin Steele to be multiple. And I think when they go to that 3-4 look, you can see, Akheem Mesidor being that guy on on the strong side, being one of those like strong side defensive ends that, can definitely be productive there. So I think that there's a lot of different ways that, I mean, again, we haven't seen how this defense is going to sort of roll. I expect a lot of different looks, a lot of different things from this defense. And I expect Akheem Mesidor, given his versatility, to be a key piece. And, when they start switching things up, to be a guy that can do a lot of different things well. And, really at a high level for Miami. I think that's why they're so excited about him.
So if we start talking about, and I love what you say about being multiple and mixing in some 3-4. If we're talking about, though, the 4-man front, who do you think the best 4 would be when you throw out names like Taylor, Mesidor, Harrison-Hunte, Jordan Miller, Mitch Agude, Jahfari, Harvey, Elijah Roberts, Chance Williams, Antonio Moultrie, Lichtenstein. So, and again, it's like the more I talk about it, really feels like a deep group, and there's going to be a heavy rotation. But who do you think is like your all-star team, like your best 4 out of that?
Yeah, I mean, my 4 would be, I think it would be Jahfari Harvey. I think he's earned one of those spots. I'd probably go Leonard Taylor, Akheem Mesidor, and then I'd go Mitch Agude as the other edge. I mean, I'm a big Agude guy.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Couple more. Let's talk a little bit more about Antonio Moultrie, who transferred in from UAB, which it's funny because it kind of felt like a big deal when the transfer was announced, and then so many other guys on the D line transferred in that I think Moultrie gets a little bit forgotten. But I mean, is he ready to have an immediate impact? I mean, he better be, because I think he's an upperclassman.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone they brought in. I think they were really excited about. I mean, I think he was one of multiple pieces they were, obviously trying to bring in, and missed the spring with that shoulder issue.
Yeah.
From what I understand, he's still sort of working his way back from that. I don't know if he's 100% fully cleared yet, but I mean, this is a former second team All Conference USA player. He's a guy that was highly productive at UAB. Miami saw UAB a couple years ago. I believe that was D'Eriq King's first start for Miami, and they were not a tough that was not an easy win. They had a couple NFL players on that defense, guys that have gone on to be drafted, that are currently on NFL rosters right now. I mean, I feel like that was a solid Conference USA program. They had shut down the program, brought it back, and were immediately successful with what they did there. So, I think Antonio Moultrie, I think he can definitely factor in well as one of these rotational pieces. And I mean, this is sort of like the analogy I give all the time. I mean, you look at the teams that were in the college football playoff. Bama, best pass rushers in the country with Dallas Turner, Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Obviously, great interior guys. Georgia, Jordan Davis, and that defensive line, that front seven. I mean, that's where you need to be strong. So you can have talent, and Antonio Moultrie is a great player, but Jordan Davis only played like 50% of snaps for Georgia last year and was a first-round pick. Like, you need guys that can rotate, because I think how important that defensive line is, that defensive front and that offensive front. I think that's super, super important in college football these days if you want to compete at a high level.
For a couple of years, we got pretty spoiled, right? Because 2019, Greg Russo had a huge season.
Yeah.
2020, Jalen Phillips had a breakout season. Last year, nobody had more than 5.5 sacks, and that was Zach McCloud, who's moved on. So you didn't have a whole lot of individual pop when it came to creating sacks. I think we both know how important the pass rush is. Miami's got a really deep secondary, but the pass rush has to help them out, right? Because if every quarterback has 5 seconds to throw, Tyreek Stevenson can only cover somebody for so long. So do you think Miami is going to have, sack-wise, a bounce-back year and kind of give us more what we were used to a few years back?
I do. I mean, before last season, I think, each of the, I guess during the year, I think he had someone collect at least 8.5 sacks or something like that every year. Yeah. I mean, Gerald Willis in 2017, maybe, I'm not really sure who it was in 2018, but Gerald Willis in 2017 was a freak show on the defensive line too. So, Miami's definitely been pretty spoiled. I do think that with this group, there's going to be a more, I guess, aggressive approach, just more tenacious. I think there's just more guys that can get after it. Even if, let's say, there's not that one guy, let's say Jahfari, Harvey, or Mitchell Agude are double-digit sackers. I think that there's a lot of different guys that can get to the quarterback and just be disruptive. I mean, that's what being defensive lineman is all about. Just create havoc. Just be disruptive. Get the quarterback off his spot. Make him move around in the pocket. Make him make an off-platform throw. And some of the great ones can make those throws, but obviously a few great ones in the ACC. But you need to give yourselves a chance there. And I think when you create that havoc, when you create that disturbance for the offense, I think that makes life easier for your defensive backs. So it's just about getting back there. It's about just changing plans, immediately. And I think Miami has a good group of guys that can get back there and make those things happen.
We're talking with Gaby Urrutia from Inside the U. We're going to focus when we come back on a couple of incoming freshmen who I think could have immediate impact, and a very intriguing transfer at defensive tackle who I think is a really promising developmental option. Guys, let's not forget, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup. We got Game 3 tonight, tied at 1 between the Warriors and Celtics, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. I'm on there checking college football futures every single day. I've already locked in Miami over 8.5 for this coming season. You can check it all out at betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And hey, guys, we have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about our listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, simply go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and thanks for your help. Alex Donno alongside Gaby Urrutia. Now, Gaby, when I mentioned that Miami over under 8.5, yeah, I noticed a little bit of a reaction out of you. Am I too bold to smash the over?
No, you're not. You're not. I think that's a strong line though. That's the line that I'm sort of tightroping right now. Do they go over 8.5 or not?
Yeah, no, it's a great line. And a couple weeks ago, we had our gambling expert Lee Sterling from Locked On Bets, and he was like, they nailed the line, so he's not betting it either way. Yeah. Like, he thinks they'll probably win 9 games, but like he says he's got to be more confident than just a half win over. I think they're going to win 15 games, right? How many do you have to win to win the college football playoff? I think that's a 15 gamer. So we're going to smash it, no problem.
Let's do it.
Let's get back to the defensive line. Daryl Jackson, who transfers in from Maryland, he's an unfinished product, I think it's safe to say. But this guy unique size at defensive tackle at 6'6". Like that's usually, edge rusher height, right? But 6'6", 300 pounds. This guy is just built different. He's got 3 more years of eligibility. What can they turn this young man into?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've heard Daryl Jackson a few times since he's gotten to Miami, just kind of being around the facility and stuff like that, being at that specialist camp last week and watching him walk out of workouts. And I mean, he's definitely a first off the bus type of body. I mean, 6'6", I think a little bit over 300 pounds. I mean, 86-inch wingspan is the number I got. So his wingspan is absolutely ridiculous. I think, he's going to be one of those guys when it's his time to get to the NFL combine. He's just going to measure off the charts, and there's going to be some NFL teams that fall in love with him if the production matches. And I think that he has a chance to do that. Again, he's a sort of a freaky looking defensive lineman, but yeah, as you mentioned, yeah, very, very raw. Signed with Maryland coming out of high school, out of sort of like Florida's Panhandle. Was a Tennessee commit for a little bit, and landed at Maryland, and had a pretty productive true freshman year. Played plenty. Really finished off strong with those last 3 games, and then generated tons of SEC. Florida, Tennessee, again Florida State, Miami were awesome schools battling it out. Once he decided to enter his name and test that market. So I know Miami's really, really excited about him. Again, I'm kind of going back to that 3-4 look. I mean, you want your Vince Wilfork type, again, maybe not 330, 340 or whatever it is, but man, you have that space eater in the middle that's strong, that's long, and that can definitely make things difficult. I think he's going to be a nice little piece to mix in there, especially pairing him next to again, all the other guys, like next to an Akheem Mesidor or a Leonard Taylor or a Jake Lichtenstein, who's also really long and big, at 6'6". So I think there's a lot of different things that you can do with him, and I think the ceiling is pretty high with him, and he's definitely become a stronger college prospect than maybe he was in high school.
I'm just thinking about all those passes he's going to bat down at the line
Yeah,
of scrimmage. Like,
right.
it's going to be insane. This is why, like, people are like, hey, quarterbacks don't necessarily have to be super tall. You do when you're going up against defensive linemen who are that long, man.
Yeah.
A couple of other players. Let's talk about a couple of incoming defensive ends as freshmen. Nigely Kelly, who was a big get in recruiting, and Cyrus Moss, who looked really good in the spring. How much of an impact do you think these players could have year one?
I mean, I think the benefit of this group is that you can make sure that those guys sort of ease their way into it. I mean, Cyrus Moss, obviously a freaky long talent. I mean, I think, people obviously want to put some weight on him, was definitely lean coming in. I mean, that's just kind of how he was. He was a safety in high school at one point and kind of grew into like an edge type of prospect. So again, someone Miami's super, super excited about, but I think someone that needs to just grow and mature physically, which is totally fine. I think he understood that coming in. Nigely Kelly is another one that I think could, I mean, I think the world of Nigel Kelly, watching him in high school. I mean, just an absolute motor. Something not a lot of people realize with Nyjaliek, he won't turn 18 years old until like August or September. So he's really, really young for his age. I mean, there's kids that are, juniors in high school right now. I think like Robbie and Bobby Washington are already 18 years old and they're committed in the 2023 class. Nigel Kelly's enrolled in early enrollee and, was at 17 years old. I mean, he's a pup. And, I think he's someone that, again, his best football is still way ahead of him. He had that shoulder issue that kept him out. But I think he's someone that maybe later on in the year, you could start mixing him in. But I think for right now, it's about just making sure he's getting bigger, faster, stronger. Because, again, I mean, really, he could be a class of 2023 prospect that he's enrolled at Miami right now, doing just incredible things and was just dominant on the defense for Dillard last year. So people in Coral Gables are really, really excited about both those guys. Nigel Kelly was a really big land for Miami.
So let's talk about like who is in the pipeline for class of 2023, whether it be, traditional D linemen or even a couple of the guys who are top athletes who project out as defensive linemen. Like, I'm a big fan of Collins Achampo,
Yeah.
the Nichols Harbor, the track stud from DC, who's probably going to be an edge rusher. Where is Miami when it comes to some of the top D line talent for the class of 2023?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wide net right now, and those are the types of recruiting battles Miami definitely wants to be in. I mean, you mentioned Colin DeChampong. I don't even know how to say his last name, but yeah, he's officially taking that final official visit to Miami the weekend of Legends Camp. He's kind of always said that Miami's been recruiting him the hardest. Nicholas Harbor put Miami in that top 7. I mean, I'd always sort of been hearing that Miami felt like they would at least get a visit from him at some point. Not sure when that happens. But again, they're in that sort of top group, and I mean, talk about freak athlete. I mean, this is like an all-time freak athlete, like a potential Olympian type of freak athlete. So that's a really big deal. And then I mean, there's a bunch of other names that you can sort of rattle off there. Like on the interior, I mean, 5-star David Hicks, he's coming on an official visit this weekend. So is 4-star Sideer Mitchell out of Bergen Catholic, which is a pretty good program up there in New Jersey. And then of course you go Reuben Bain, Jordan Hall up in Jacksonville. Darren Reed up in Georgia, who's a big 4-star. Ohio State might be in a good spot. I mean, then you got like guys like John Walker and Derek LeBlanc out of Orlando that Miami's, still fighting, clawing their way for with schools like, I mean, for John Walker, Ohio State, Michigan are involved. So is Florida. And, Florida definitely in there for Derek LeBlanc, too, is also considering Oklahoma. So a lot of guys just, on the interior defensive line. James Smith is someone, too, a kid from Alabama who like every SEC school in the country wants. So, definitely some big names there. And then, definitely more edge guys, too, if you want to get into those as well.
Well, listen, I do want to get into a little bit more on the other side and also staffing addition. Now, we knew he was coming, but Miami did officially announce
Yeah.
Roland Smith, alum, former Central coach. They announced his role officially, and I want to offer some tweets from the people out there who have their takes on the defensive line. I got takes on Built Bar. I actually just ate a Built Bar right before the show started. I should have just waited and eaten the Built Bar during the Built Bar commercial. The new caramel brownie Built Bar, it is fire. Don't you love a chewy chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? It's so good, guys. What if I told you you can have all of that chewy chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? You're in luck because caramel brownie Built Bars are available at built.com right now. And you got to act fast because, yeah, they're a fan favorite. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert, a lot better for you. The macros are unreal. Only 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie with Built's caramel brownie bar in a heartbeat. And the best part, caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. You can have both, guys. And all of Built's bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently. There are millions of reasons why you should try Built bars. But for now, let's just say that caramel brownies will rock your world. And that is not an understatement. With Built, tasty is the new healthy. Go to built.com to get your box of caramel brownie bars now. Go to built.com and use our promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com. Alex Donno here with Gaby Urrutia. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your pods. So let's come full circle here, Gaby, on the current defensive line crop. We've talked about standouts. Give me a player or two this season who you think are sleepers that people aren't expecting that you think could really break out and have nice seasons.
Yeah, I mean, one you mentioned earlier, Jared Harrison-Hunte. I mean, I think he's someone that I'm not writing off quite yet. Again, I'm big on like the athletic profile and what he can do athletically, and I think he's someone that if he's at the right weight, which I'm his last year, I think that he's someone that can really sort of impress. And I think it's notable that he didn't transfer. I think with all these additions, I honestly wouldn't have been surprised to see one or two of these guys to say, hey, 5 defensive linemen, like, I'm probably not going to have much of a shot here. And, Jared Harrison-Hunte stuck it out. I think that's a pretty big deal. And, I think Miami has some big plans for him. I'll give you is definitely Elijah Roberts. I know people in Coral Gables are
Good
really,
call.
really high on him. Again, we talk about Akheem Mesidor as like a versatile piece that could sort of play inside and outside. I mean, I think Elijah Roberts is someone that can definitely do a lot of the same. And I think people had really high expectations for him to coming out of the spring. I heard during that fourth quarter program during those off-season workouts. He was someone that was really, really and just doing a lot of really good things. And then he got injured. I'm pretty sure it was day one of spring football, and then was obviously out and has sort of still been working his way back since. But I mean, Jared Harrison-Hunte, Elijah Roberts are two guys I'm definitely not ready to write off for Miami yet.
By the way, everyone, make sure you remember you could tweet us. We follow you back when you follow us at Locked On Canes is the show Twitter handle. We got some good tweets from ATM All Teams Miami. He also gives a shout out for Harrison-Hunte. He says breakout player will be Jared Harrison-Hunte. His sleeper is Chance Williams. He says his sack leader is Akheem Mesidor. 305 Kane Fanatic says his standout will be Mesidor. He gets a lot of love, and I understand why. He says his sack leader will be Mitchell Agude, and his sleepers are Roberts, who you talked about, and he also throws in Moss and Moultrie. And I get the sense people are pretty high on Miami's defensive line, and I love the excitement.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be excited, man. I mean, again, this might be the deepest group on the team. I mean, maybe outside of safety, but like that defensive line. I mean, again, it's when you go out and get 5 quality guys. Again, these aren't just 5 random guys they're 5 guys that have started games at the Power 5. Oh, like other than Moultrie, all 4 of those guys, 4 of them have started games at the Power 5 level. Moultrie was a second-team All-Conference player at the Group of 5 level. I mean, these are all guys that have done it. They're not these aren't just random dudes. These guys have all played at some big-time football and have actually contributed on defenses. I mean, there's a lot of reason why throwing in 5 new names alongside with the group that they sort of already have, is sort of promising. I mean, I'm excited about this group. I think the defensive line is definitely one of the strong suits of Kevin Steele's defense.
Now, we got some breaking news within the last 12 hours, and it's like quote unquote breaking news because I think we've known for several months that he was going to be on the staff. But Miami officially announced Roland Smith, former Canes player, former Miami Central head coach. He gets the opportunity to, come back to the crib, come back to the U. He's going to be, Gaby, the director of high school relations. So obviously this is going to be a big deal for recruiting. What kind of an impact do you think Roland Smith can make?
Yeah, I mean, the type of impact he's already made. I mean, it's crazy how Miami does these like hires where these guys have been around for like months already. Like Roland Smith's been around the team for like 3-4 months already, and then just now they're officially announcing it. I mean, I don't know why they do things that way, but it is what it is. So yeah, Roland Smith has already made such a big impact on Miami. I mean, he's been around the program. He's definitely like that bridge between high school coaches. Considering the relationship, I mean, just really, who he is within the especially South Florida high school community. I mean, he's Central winning a ton of state titles. I mean, he definitely, earned his flowers and a chance to, get it done at the college level. And, I think he's someone that brings a lot of wisdom, especially to some of the younger coaches on staff. I think he's someone that, again, when you're talking about, mending relationships or continuing to, build on top of those relationships with Miami and some of these high schools and, Broward County all the way up through, really the state. I mean, I think Roland Smith is someone that, definitely has a strong reputation for really anyone that's contacting Miami or coming through with Miami, and his name is popping up on their phone. So I think that's a home run for Mario Cristobal. I think that's one of the smartest moves he's made is bringing in Roland Smith because you definitely want to have him on your side of all this, especially him being an alum. So I absolutely love that move. I'm happy for him too. As a guy that really just sort of earned it at the high school level. And what he did at Central was just incredible. I was talking to Larry Bluestein one time on the sidelines of a game at Travis Powell. I can't remember which one, but I'm pretty sure Central was playing. And he told me that, it should be Travis Powell's, it should be Roland Smith Field at Travis Powell Stadium, considering how much at that stadium, obviously, where a bunch of the inner city schools play, like Miami Northwestern, Miami Central, Norland, all these different schools. So, I mean, that's the type of respect that Roland Smith has, in the South Florida community that, people think he's worthy of that honor.
That's fantastic. Gaby does a great job, as always. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Gaby Urrutia 24/7. Make sure you check out his work inside the U 24/7 Sports and on the Through the Smoke podcast. You and David Lake do a fantastic job. Gaby, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, Donno. Anytime, man.
Love it. Absolutely loaded. Guys, thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Now make your second listen the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, hosted by Rafael Barlow. They give fans an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and of course, big boards. Follow Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. A lot more recruiting tomorrow. John Garcia Jr. from Sports Illustrated will join us on another episode of Locked On Canes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.